think is a total spoofer. Why should be a spoofer? This is bullshit.
Wolves coming back from an offside position, but Shane Long was definitely onside. Shane Long has done it!
I'm going to enjoy tonight.
And you should as well.
Thanks very much.
Well done.
Bye.
Unless he's breastfeeding, he should be alright.
Well, it's been a while since we last recorded, and although there might be an ongoing injury crisis inside Ireland Radar, it felt like no better week to return. Many things to talk about. Some transfers in there. But in the meantime, you are very welcome to the Ireland Radar podcast. It is me, Dylan Hudson, hosting in the absence of Joseph. And joining me today, all the way from the Basque country of Bilbao, is, of course, James French. James, how's it going?
Good now. Obviously, at the San Mamés on Sunday. At that club and Leganes and finished it all. The only score I could have been with an Irishman in attendance. So, nice to see some Spanish football, but kind of a familiar scoreline. Anyone goes to Ireland matches.
You'd be disappointed with anything else but a 0-0. And joining us today as well, we've got reinforcements in. If luck doesn't get much better for this man, not only is he back from Atlanta where he covered college football for Pro Football Ireland, and not only did he get to interview Pat McAfee, but to top it all off, he gets to make his second Ireland Radar podcast appearance. It is, of course, Conal Duggan. Conal, how are you doing?
I'm doing very good. I mean, to be fair, actually, since the last time we talked, I have seen Ireland win a competitive match, which is, that's a big moment. I think I was like, they hadn't won in, I think, 11 attempts or 10 attempts that I'd seen them live. So I'm doing much better. And obviously, going to America, like, that's just a bit of a cherry on the icing on the cake, as the people say. But I'm doing pretty good now.
Good stuff. If you want to see all about Conal's adventures in America, I would recommend going over to his Twitter page because it's quite entertaining stuff. Love the interview with McAfee especially. But there is only one place to start this week. It is a pretty monumental day, we could say, in the League of Ireland football after, a very, very successful year for the league. To top it off, League of Ireland are now going into business with Virgin Media. 36 games throughout the year are going to be shown on Virgin Media, meaning that there will be one game of League of Ireland live football every week in a 4-year deal. RTE originally signalled an intention to continue their coverage, but they're not willing to match the games shown by Virgin Media. The Cup's allocation still remains a bit unclear in the time, but RTE may get their slice of the pie there, but have not yet commented on it. And Virgin Media are to enhance the broadcast. I think Tommy Martin and Brian Kerr are going to be doing coverage. No indication of how much the deal is worth to the League of Ireland yet, but perhaps it's not the financial stuff we should be looking at here. James, we'll get you to go first here. Just how big is a deal like this, getting one game a week to be on free television in Ireland?
Yeah, it's huge. I think it's obviously been a long time coming, but after last season, all the kind of hype around Damien Duff, Shelburne, the viewing figures of that game, the winning goal in Derry, then obviously Rovers gone on that run in Europe, unprecedented run, beating some top sides, getting unbelievable results aside from Ireland, considering our recent history in Europe, and obviously those games not being on free to air television. When the vast majority of the Irish public, you could kind of say we're more inclined to rugby, we're more inclined to the GA. Irish public are very interested in how Irish teams are doing in European football, especially in the group stages. Again, like Chelsea, it was just a huge missed open goal from RTE in terms of not showing any of those games. And obviously now it's kind of that lack of action from Declan McBennett and RTE, lack of care. It's kind of just bit them in the face, and it's been a long time coming. Declan McBennett was on, I remember hearing him on League of Ireland Central podcast saying how we wanted to kind of grow the league, etc. Kind of a lot of waffle, but very little action behind, and it's come back to bite him, which is nice to see, but kind of coming from a broader standpoint with the league, it's unprecedented now, and the interest levels are at all-time high, and I think that needs to be showcased in games being shown on television, and now we obviously have that with the game every week, and kind of looking from now, I think hopefully the momentum just keeps coming, because I think it's just kind of positive story after positive story in the League of Ireland, for perhaps the only real kind of place left to seriously improve is probably the facilities, and hopefully that's kind of something that will come in the coming years. But on the TV deal, it is unbelievable news.
It is something that was talked about for a few weeks, and you criticised RT there. Interestingly, I think a few weeks ago that they announced that they were going to be continuing their coverage of League of Ireland football before I think Virgin Media came in and said, "Hang on a second here." Now they still admitted that,
like it's pure arrogance, like.
yeah, I think they just assumed that was going to be the case. But it's good to have appetite. It's always good to have competition, and what it might set up. They've got a 4-year deal that it's. I think will that be finished in 2029 that we might have a proper bidding war for the league, but that's far down the line. I think this is a big moment to celebrate, and establishing like a weekly game is really putting Ireland, like the League of Ireland on the athletic calendar, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. It's a pretty big thing just to even have one match a week, because there was points in the middle of the season where there was no match for not only multiple weeks, but you're considering like it would be one thing if there was no match and the league was kind of uninspiring in what was going on, but we had basically 3-team title race coming into the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season last year. We had a race for Europe. Like there was the whole like top half of the table was up for grabs for anyone, and they just didn't capitalize on that. And then they saw what the potential viewership could have been when they came into the last week or two. But at that point, people were already a bit fed up with what they saw. So, and even the added thing that they'll have cameras at the other grounds and they'll show goal updates from other grounds, I think is maybe the most important thing here as well, because you have people who they might feel a bit hard done by that my team isn't getting shown, but you'll at least get to see updates and goal updates and maybe whatever else they want to throw in if there was a big chance missed or something like that. But I do think in general it's a good thing, and it's probably a better thing that it seems to be a company who cares and wants to help grow, rather than presuming that they were going to get this, like or it seemed like RTE thought they were going to have.
And that's a good point as well. Virgin Media's coverage when it's come to the cup games and other games they've gotten has tended to have that a bit more of analysis, and that's the really interesting stuff, especially to anyone that might be new to the league, which is what this is going to bring in. Is you're going to figure out who the players are, who the teams are, what the stories are behind that. And I suppose like another thing that people have been crying out for, especially seeing that stay on social media with all the celebrations that are going on, is it's perhaps been like a highlight show, like a type of match of the day thing. So I wonder down the line, would that be something that they can introduce? But it's probably not time to talk about that yet. We should probably all celebrate this, and what's a big moment for Irish football.
I know the high regard in which you're held and the respect people have for you, including kids who are wondering why the toy man is being in the news so much.
I want them to be happy and hopeful and proud to be Irish. Really.
Well, that's exactly.
I'd like to add, people have families.
Yeah.
My relationship with the children of Ireland is so important to me. I know that sounds grandiose, but actually it is. I've never seen anything like it. My name has been desperately sullied.
In the least, Brian. But I saw you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But you never saw me with cocaine.
I never saw you with cocaine. You were always very clever.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if any of you have been cancelled before, but let me tell you, you don't want to be there.
So it looked like it was complicit in this whole RT mess. So I'm sorry. We have. This has been the worst.
No, not a sentence I really thought I'd be saying to start the On The Radar section of the show this week, but we start in France. And it seems that a lot of Ireland's prayers have been answered, or have they? John Joe Patrick Finn has been proclaimed the answer to all of Ireland's midfield woes after he made his debut for Stade de Reims following his $1 million transfer from Getafe, playing 70 minutes in a 1-1 draw away to PSG. 6'3", holding midfielder. I think we were discussing beforehand that we thought he was a striker or a winger coming into this, but seems to be a lot of pressure on him after, not even 90 minutes of football to become this messiah for Ireland's midfield. But James, you must be excited about this, as you've always been a big advocate of Irish players going to other European leagues outside of England. So just give us your immediate thoughts of this situation.
Yeah, obviously, I think him getting a move in the first place is probably the bigger news at the time, like in terms of going to Ligue 1 in France, where probably kind of better league for him to develop, probably more game time. Like I know Getafe are like extremely like conservative in how they play, and they're like kind of known as like the Burnley of La Liga. So I think probably him playing in a Stade de Reims kind of probably who are kind of known for developing young talent as well is probably better for him. In terms of kind of his future, like I think any player that's playing in the top 5 league, no matter who you are, like you're pretty good guaranteed chance of getting in the Ireland squad like at the minute. I think they should be taking precedent anyway if you are kind of playing regularly in a top 5 league. He's obviously only had the one start. Hopefully kind of he can continue that into March and get a call up. But kind of just going off these highlights, he kind of looks like the perfect package. I know I'm kind of wary of YouTube highlights, especially kind of a 3-minute kind of version. The highlights, it's hard to gauge a real kind of opinion of a player, but in terms of his raw attributes, like 6'3", as you were saying, old midfielder, kind of everything we've kind of been crying out for. Like I know a lot of people were kind of looking forward to seeing Boston Noel come into the squad. He's kind of had an injury hit season, but it's kind of a real position we lack physicality in. And obviously, like he's come up through the Spanish system. He's played in Real Madrid's academy. Like this guy he's gonna have all the kind of the basics down to a T. Like so, it's definitely very exciting in a position that we are really bare bones in. One thing I would say is we do kind of have, as Irish football fans, we're kind of always in the trenches. We do have a kind of tendency to hype up these guys, especially in positions we're really short in. So hopefully we can kind of let him be in League On and he can continue to impress, and kind of let's not put too much pressure on him yet. But yeah, kind of just first thoughts, first glance, just looks, the raw attributes look kind of really exciting for him, and hopefully keeps playing and keeps starting regularly.
That's a very good point you make, James. I'm trying not to put too much pressure on him. I think it's a given that there is going to be a lot of clamour for him. And I don't know how much he's going to be able to avoid that pressure, because if anyone's been on Twitter today, and I should mention that we are recording on Monday the 27th, so just following the weekend's games of football, all the talk was about him and is he the answer? I think maybe people who hasn't followed him for a while, he's been making a bit more appearances when he was in Spain at the start of the season, would not have known him playing in midfield. Of course, he's been a name that people have known for a while, just because he has one of the best names in football. He's just an interesting character that was born in Spain and is playing for Ireland under 19s. And for his photo shoot he did for Stade de Reims, he was holding the tricolour, so it looks like he is committed to Ireland. Conal, you have any thoughts on this? Surely as well, there must be a bit of excitement or maybe even a bit of trepidation not to get too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously, like I think everyone knows more of the name than actually of the player. Like that there's you're probably just like scrolling through squad lists or scrolling through Twitter, and you're like, oh, there's a random guy called John Joe Patrick Finn who plays in Spain and is born in Spain, but his dad's from Mayo, and it's like Cristiano Fitzgerald who was playing in Portugal, but he is or looks anyway to be a very good player, and not the type of player that maybe we thought he was in the first place. As you mentioned, I was thinking he was more of a kind of number 10 sort of winger player, but it seems like, I mean, if he's 6'4", he has all the ability to be, a more holding midfielder. And, you look at kind of Ireland's options there. I mean, you have Josh Cullen there, and now he doesn't really play the more holding player. But, Jason Malumbi, for as good a player as he can be, he is limited in his ability. And Connor Coventry, at least in the last squad, was the other option in that position. So it is like we could use a bit of improvement there. And I also think, you're looking through Ireland squads, and you were saying I wouldn't be surprised if there was a clamour for him. I think we more recently have become maybe the most clamour. If there's one player does something, they need to be in the next squad, but for whatever reason no one's ever happy with the squad. There's always one player or two players getting left out, but at the end of the day, like, the squad is a set amount of players. Like, someone has to miss out. It happens with England all the time. They're always complaining, how didn't this player make the squad? And it's like, well, someone has to miss out. Not every player you want can make the squad. But I think looking at how he played, and you look at, that it does seem like, even though he's only made 2 under-21s appearances, that, it seems like he'd be playing for Ireland. And, no offense to him, maybe it would be easier to get him to the Ireland squad than the Spain squad. It looks like, if the next international break comes around and, this isn't just a one appearance and, he doesn't really play anymore, we could be in for having a pretty solid, midfielder.
Yeah, and it is probably a massive positive that it was his debut comes against PSG, and I think it was probably the first squad that he was able, first game he was able to play for Reims, and he's gone straight into the team. Now I don't know, do they have injury issues or anything like that, but even if they did, to come in and make your debut against a team at PSG, at a club that you haven't been long at, despite the fact that he's got very minimal senior experience at 21, that's a very good sign. And we constantly talk about players making the wrong move and, maybe sticking to clubs in England and stuff like this. But it looks like it could be a fantastic place for him to go. And you say that playing in France and that he came up through Spain and all the academies there, that maybe there's someone who will have a bit of technical ability to go off as well. I think sticking in France, though, another player who I think might have made a very good transfer as well. Definitely one of my favourite moves of the window so far. Andrew Omobamidele made his debut for Strasbourg after signing for the club on loan for the remainder of the season. Originally, the deal was reported as a permanent transfer, but since been revealed to be a loan with option to buy for the French side. It's an interesting move to Strasbourg. Of course, they're known these days for being in that Chelsea network, but they've got a good young coach in Ligue who's been pretty good with young players in the past in his championship role. Obviously had a bit of a tired time at Forest at Omobamidele. I think he only made 11 appearances for the club, but how do we see it working out for him in France?
I'm actually very positive about this one. I think you're kind of looking at, well, first off, I think France is a very good league just for players to develop, especially young centre-backs. I mean, if you're looking at centre-backs and defenders kind of across Europe, like a lot of the best ones have started off in Ligue 1. Like even, you're looking at Kusanov, who just signed for Man City for 40 million. He was developed in this league. And, Upamecano and, Konate, like they all got their starts in this league, and then obviously moved on to Leipzig, but then are now at 2 of the biggest clubs in the world in Liverpool and Bayern Munich. So it's definitely a league where he'll be able to develop. I'm looking kind of through the squad, and there's a couple of good centre backs there, but and he's joint oldest with them, but it's a young squad. And I think what I really like most about them is that they have Liam Rossignol in there. I think he's a very, very talented manager. He got a lot out of his Hull sides in the championship, and a lot of fans kind of thought it was maybe it's time to go come the end of his time. But you've seen they're in the relegation spaces, or they're fighting to stave off relegation at the moment, and they almost got into the promotion places last season. So it is a case of he's probably part of the reason for that as well. And obviously them being part of the Chelsea network helps them get a lot of these good young players. I mean, the kind of standout guy for them is Andre Santos in midfield. He's one of the best young talents in Europe at the moment. But I'd be very happy. I think he got 3 points on his debut. He got a win on his debut. They're a mid-table side, but they're kind of in and around the Europa League places. They're only 2 or 3 points off at the moment. So he's found himself, I think, at a good club, a club that is willing to kind of take the time to develop him, and has money. Since they're part of the Chelsea, conglomerate, to be able to have the money not only to develop, but also to be able to bring in more talent around him, even though they're already a very talented team.
Yeah, I was kind of just looking at his career, like it's kind of another example of when an Irish player advised pretty bad. I didn't realise that he's only had 2 seasons in his whole career where he's made double figures in appearances. Like one was obviously the breakout in the championship in 22-23, and then the year after he obviously was pushing for the move. I think it was the end of the summer window. I think he got that move in the end. Played very little football for Norwich, and then he's kind of already on the back foot going to Forest and with their competition and everything. And just kind of a bad move, to be honest, badly advised. I think he probably would have been better off staying in the championship with Norwich for another year before going to Forest. But obviously now at Strasbourg, just kind of a solid move, top 5 league. I think just looking at our centre back options now, like it's pretty ridiculous, to be honest. If you like kind of look at maybe compatriots in terms of like national team level for us, just across the water, like Wales and Scotland. If you look at their centre half options, you look at ours, like I think they'd be absolutely crying out for any one of the likes of Omobamidele, Collins, O'Shea, O'Brien, like off the top of my head. I know, I'll say for the area, I think we've four of the top 7 best performing centre backs in the championship. Luke McAnally, Aaron Cashin, Mark McGuinness, and then CJ Egan-Riley, who's obviously eligible for Ireland. Like, it's a position we're really stacked in, and like I don't think we have never really had like all of them kind of playing at the same time regular football. And so it's, if all of them are kind of playing regular football coming to March, and maybe Liam Scales, who obviously is out of the Celtic starting 11 at the minute, like it'll be really interesting to see who Heimer picks, like, and kind of what level he prioritises in terms of playing in a top 5 league or playing well in the championship. It's just going to be, it's always good to have choices, but like our centre back options do really look really, really strong at the minute.
Yeah, and I think listeners to the show will know that I'm very high on Omobamidele, and I think he's still a young player at the end of the day. I think this is a good move for him. With regular minutes, I'd be certainly having him in the starting 11. I think there's also probably points that, I don't know, can you start Jake O'Brien and Collins together where they're similar enough in profile? Like on paper, I think Omobamidele and Collins, or Omobamidele and O'Brien, work very well as that kind of old school, bigger defender and a smaller one. You look at the likes of Nottingham Forest this season, who've kind of got that going with Milenkovic and Murillo, and it's worked in the past for so many teams. And I think if Omobamidele succeeds with this move, I think it'll be hard to shove him out of the team, even with so much competition in that position. Perhaps what's the biggest transfer story regarding Irish players in the January transfer window is the future of Evan Ferguson. A loan deal has looked on the cards for some time now. We are nearing the end of the transfer window and no real movement yet, but Ferguson has been injured for a good portion of the window. But news coming out in the recent weeks that a deal looks inevitable. Now, it's unsure what team is in for Ferguson just yet. Andy Naylor wrote a piece just this week on The Athletic, which I would very much recommend if you're subscribed to there, where he suggests a reunion with Graham Potter at West Ham. Also, Fabrizio Romano just tweeted yesterday as well, or I think it was the early hours of this morning. Evan Ferguson is expected to leave Brighton on loan in the next few days, with genuine interest from several clubs. Premier League, Ligue 1 and Bundesliga clubs have made contact, with decision to follow soon. There's a lot of Premier League teams with striker issues at the moment. To bring up West Ham, not too sure on that, with just Graham Potter has kind of got a poor record with strikers throughout his career. I've heard that some places that Arsenal are interested but can't actually register him due to they have 2 Premier League loans already. James, where would you like to see Evan end up this window? I think he's got a lot of options.
Yeah, I think kind of getting him out of the Premier League and kind of going on with the trend of this podcast. Kind of send him over to France, like it's kind of where we're all kind of talking about, kind of a really good spot for developing young players. And I think he just needs to get out of the Premier League, and if he goes to a loan to West Ham, the whole kind of narrative of him not scoring for how many days, how many games, it's just gonna kind of keep going on. Like, and I don't think there's a side in the Premier League that, like, every side of the Premier League has a decent striker option that can challenge him. Like, I think he needs to go somewhere where he's going to be a starter. Like, so I think going to France, I think that's kind of the talk of where a lot of clubs are interested in him. Maybe a Marseille link up at the Zerbi. I know I think Liam Mulvey has only scored like 3 goals from this season. I think they probably are in need of a quality number 9, which Evan is. And I think he just needs to get away from England and look at Troy Barrett, what he done over the last couple of years, rebuilding his career, rebuilding his profile, gone to the Netherlands, scoring goals in obviously a slightly less quality league, but on a bigger stage. And I just think he needs to go to France, and anywhere really. France, another top 5 league, but obviously I think France is where the rumours are going at the minute. I think maybe link up with the Zerbi. I think people have talked about their relationship and stuff. I don't really know any of the facts, but like, he obviously brought him through at Brighton, kind of gave him good few opportunities. Like, so he obviously is a fan, and I think that'd be kind of the best move to kind of get out of the Premier League.
Well, I was just kind of looking through clubs, and obviously there's the West Ham link, but another Premier League club, and to me it would be a bit of a no-brainer. I could understand maybe why Brighton wouldn't loan it to them, but going to Bournemouth honestly would be one of the best moves I think he could make, because both their strikers are going to be out for. Oh, well, I know Unal I think is out for the full season, but Evan Nilsson, I think he broke his foot. I don't know if he's out for the season, but he'll be out for the majority of the rest of the season. So, like, you put him with, two of those guys are fairly similar build to him. I think Evan Nilsson is kind of a fair comp for him. Same type of same stature of player anyway. And, obviously going to Bournemouth playing under Andoni Iraola would be a good thing. The only reason they might not do it is because they played Dango Utara up front this weekend and he got himself a hat-trick. So yeah, maybe Utara has played him out of a move almost. But yeah, like looking across Europe, like I'd like maybe a league on moves, like we were just kind of talking about that league, but I don't know who would really like make a move for him. Like a lot of those teams kind of wouldn't maybe be able to cover fees and whatnot. Even like Lons, who would be a team some people might look at. They had to sell two of their best players in January just to make sure they run a profit this year. Like, so I think Premier League is maybe the most realistic for him, but I think we'll see in the next coming days. I think it'll be a mistake though if he doesn't end up going out on loan, with the amount of players who it seems are ahead of him in the pecking order.
Do you think Brian would like get rid of him to Bournemouth, considering like they're like all kind of fighting? Well, why not more power, but
that's what that's the only reason. Like, but then it's like, why would they? West Ham really, at least in the Premier League, seems to be the only team. Maybe like a Brentford, but I even just think that wouldn't happen. Like the Bournemouth, the only reason I think it makes sense is like, one, they need a striker, but two, it's kind of like close proximity, so there's not a whole lot of change almost needed there. Like, he probably just has a longer drive, but
it's been said though that Brighton aren't going to be willing to loan him out to teams that they think are in direct competition for them. And I know Bournemouth are flying and they're only like a point or two outside of Champions League places, but I think Brighton are going to see themselves in the race for European places. Bournemouth are absolutely in the race for European places. So I can't see that move to Bournemouth unless
Tottenham are pretty desperate.
Yes,
Tottenham are pretty desperate. Well, Werner could be going to America, like, and then I know he kind of plays the winger for them, but like,
would you do that in Ferguson? He's had a bad few years. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I think he does. That's what I'm saying. He did have to kind of go to France with his son, get away from the hype. Like,
I do know though, if he goes to anyone from 16th or below, like it's only going to end badly. Like,
just after college, and like he just needs to get out of it. Like
Everton, Wolves, Ipswich, Southampton. If he goes to any of them, I can't see, like, for as good a player he is, I just can't see it going well.
The West Ham link is slightly worrying because, like I said, that Graham Potter has a poor track record with strikers. You remember when he was at Brighton, it was all about, they played this wonderful football, but they couldn't score for the lives. And then De Zerbi comes in and suddenly they're scoring for fun. I think Potter, in 900 and odd games in management, his strikers have only scored like 170 goals or something. Like, it's pretty shocking that his record with strikers. I think Bournemouth would be a perfect move. I don't think that's going to happen because of the position. Obviously, James, I'd say Iraola is one of your Basque mates now. But I think somewhere like France or somewhere like Bundesliga where things are a bit quieter, I think it's also important to note that Brighton have had so much success loaning players out of a similar age to Ferguson, maybe for a year or two. You think of almost all of their successes, big transfer successes, whether it be the likes of Alexis McAllister, it likes to be Caicedo, or even recently with I think Baleba was loaned out, and like almost all of the players that have come up through the ranks that they've signed from a club, they've loaned out and brought them back in, like Ayeri as well. It's just that Ferguson had this, like, his moment so early that he got so much hype that, if what is he still only 18 or 19? Like, these are still the age that Brighton are loaning players out for experience. So they tend to get it right when they do this thing. So it'll be in.
Just whoever's advising them. I know Brian do get their loans right, but like, it's up whoever's advising, whoever's agent isn't afraid of leaving the UK. Like, and I hope they're just not too prideful and leaving the Premier League. Like, it's not a failure leaving the Premier League to go alone at 1920. Like a lot of guys get their moves at 2021, like, to the Premier League. So we just hope he isn't.
what James said there, like players getting their moves, 2021, like it's important to know. I think me and Dylan talked about this one time, like people get so caught up in like, the FIFA and football manager development where if someone isn't good by 21, 22, then, their career's over. Like that's not how it works in real life. Like players continue to develop like physically, like he might be still have much more to gain physically, but not only like that, but like he's going to be a much better player mentally as he keeps going, a much better finisher. Like he's so young that he can kind of only get better. Like he's not going to become a worse player by getting older, at this stage.
He just needs to, like we said, you don't want to put him as someone that's relegation threatened like Tottenham. So you just need to I had to get another take in there. You just need somewhere that he can get his confidence back, and that's that. Like it just needs to be a move where he can play it like himself. I know Brighton have been. I think it started going wrong for him as well. Of course, the injuries have probably been the main factor. He missed something like 11 months with that ankle injury or a combination of injuries. Derby changed his style of play because he expected more of a build-up from Ferguson, which, if we're honest here, Evan Ferguson's build-up play is something I think he really struggles with. They brought in Bobby Zamora, of all people, as like a part-time striker coach and has been talking about trying to improve Ferguson's game. I think they just need to stop worrying about that for a moment if they go somewhere on loan and just pick a club that's going to suit Evan Ferguson's best talents, get him scoring goals again. He's been through 3 managers now, so that's also going to affect your confidence, and he can come back from this loan and Hertzler can then focus on a Ferguson who's a lot more confident. And as well, reading this article from Naylor, it seems that Brighton are still genuinely have full belief in Ferguson. They've ruled out ideas of a sale. He's got a contract to 2029. I do think the club will support him on this, and hopefully we're looking at a good deal. And to be honest, I'm expecting it to be like a deadline day scramble in this situation, which will be one to stick to the TV for, I think.
I think, listen, the issue in regarding taking the knee, some people seen it as you're supporting a Marxist organisation. Marxist is, equality. This. What is Marxism like? Does Capital, for example, it's not Mein Kampf, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's not Mein Kampf. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, whether you believe or don't believe in I don't, it's not McCarthyism, Chidozie Ogbenya, the first African-born player to play for Ireland. Very proud moment for a lot of people. I don't see it as a political issue, taking the knee. I think it's a humanitarian issue, just about supporting people. And we want the Irish team to make the Irish public proud, and we have to do that with our performances and our results. We have to do that, but it must be reflective of, it's a new multicultural Ireland and a new team that represents all facets of society. And that's the thing about football. It represents, every strand of society.
Now onto the lowdown. Normally we bring you down all the action that you might have missed during the week, but because we've been gone for so long, we're kind of just going to throw a few bits together here that are interesting. Probably going to leave a lot out, but sure, so be it. It's been a fantastic week, as we've discussed, for the centre-backs of the Irish national team and for Jacob Bryan. Everton have seemingly remembered they signed him in the summer, and he started the last 2 games for Everton, where Everton have won both. Playing at right back, and Everton last beat Brighton 1-0 on Saturday. Also, Nathan Collins celebrated his 100th Premier League appearance with a man-of-the-match performance in Brentford's 2-1 win over Crystal Palace, where Collins also won a penalty in that game. What do we think of Ireland's options here now at centre-back? I think it's something we've talked about quite a bit, but you see, Collins is having a fantastic season. I thought he was great at Liverpool, or against Liverpool more so. And now Jacob Bryan seems to be getting minutes too. And we talked about Omobamidele. I think Heimer's going to have a headache of who he's actually going to play.
Like, I think Nathan Collins is arguably one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League. Like, I would not be surprised if in the next transfer window he moved to, one of the big 6 teams. Like, that's how kind of good he is. And I don't think even we as Ireland fans kind of talk about it enough, that like we have kind of...
Well, I think we don't talk about it because he's been, like, let's be honest, he's been a bit shit for Ireland. Like, he's considered, like, made a lot of mistakes, and maybe that's a bit harsh. I think
there are expectations though, like what position is he playing for? Absolutely. Position is he playing for Brentford? Like, with Brentford, like one of the most organised teams in the Premier League. They are probably one of the most tactically tactically drilled teams in the league. He knows exactly what his role is in that Brentford side. Like, and that, I think, what is he? Is he right of a tree in the tree back with Brentford? I think, isn't he? He's not the centre.
I think they're forward back. They're forward back now.
Oh, are they forward back? I'm gonna get my waffling then.
I think you have a point there. Like, the difference in the football we're playing is probably more front foot with Brentford. But yeah, I think, okay, it's probably a bit harsh to say that he's been shit, but he's definitely made a couple of high profile errors and definitely doesn't look like the player that he is. And as I said, he probably is on paper our best player by a considerable margin, and that's probably why he's got the captain's armband recently. But Cuddle, as you were going there, and I'll let you continue as well, I absolutely do see him signing for a big 6 club in the future, because I think I've thought so when he was, before he transferred to Brentford. He seems to have all the tools, and he keeps getting better. It's been a fantastic season for him at Brentford.
Yeah, and he's only 23. Like, I remember saying that to one of my friends. I was like, that he's only 23, and like, you kind of forget, like, him, Omobamidele, like, we as Ireland fans, we watch every single move that these guys make, and it seems like they've been playing for years. We've been watching him play for so long that you're like, oh, he is still 23, which, especially for a centre back, is incredibly young. Like, he still has years to come into his prime, and it's just about to get to the age where a lot of the top teams are like, okay, we've seen kind of a nice sample size of him now. We know what, if we bring him in here with our coach, he can only kind of come in and improve, to be honest. And putting him in, especially in a team like Brentford, as James said, that is already so tactically sound. Like, there's not a whole lot of things they're going to have to teach him, in that side of the game either. So that's why, I think, he's one of the best. And you have, obviously all the rest of the players that Ireland have at centre back, but he's the type of player, like, you're going to build around, or he's going to be, let's say you're going into a Euros and some foreign, some foreign broadcasters, like, who are the key players for Ireland, and it's, he's going to be one of the top one or two that they're going to point out and be like, our team is going to have to deal with Nathan Collins.
I'd also say there probably isn't like a player, I think he's 23. I wouldn't say there's like a player in world football that has played like that many appearances in the Premier League, like, at his age. Like, I know there's obviously some, like, obviously, like, a lot of English guys and stuff, like, but in terms of like guys like that played that many minutes of Premier League football for his age, it's ridiculous. Like, I think he's just destined to be at like a top 6 club in the next couple of windows, like, especially if he keeps up this form. I think the only team kind of stopping him, I mean, that in recent times, in the last year or two, even barring Ireland games, is just kind of them kind of lapses of concentration, kind of that bit of indiscipline in his positioning and stuff. Like, they're kind of the 2 main things that he has kind of been out falls for, and like, and those things can be ironed out. Like, he is the full package centre half wise. Like, he's 6'4", he's quick, strong, can come out with the ball, perfect kind of modern day centre half. Like it's just those kind of little details to iron out, and like what better club kind of to be at than Brentford that kind of emphasises the defensive side of the game with Thomas Frank, with their set piece and all those things that you can bring into an Ireland camp. And I just think hopefully you can kind of start to do that. But like I think some of the reasons why he probably hasn't is just kind of the difference in going from Brentford with a tactically like really well tactically drilled side to like the minute detail to Ireland, where maybe it's not at the same detail and his deficiencies kind of get exposed a bit.
Absolutely, yeah. I totally agree with both of you there. We'll go back onto the rundown here. Tom Cannon this week has made his permanent switch to Sheffield United, who joined Leicester for 10 million. Tom was at Stoke City but was recalled back from his loan deal, and it will now complete the rest of the season with Sheffield United, who look kind of set to be promoted this season. They're sitting second place in the Championship. Last week, Troy Parrott brought his goal tally up to 12 for the season, 15 goal contributions in total. This Thursday, he faces off against Robbie Keane's Ferencváros in the Europa League clash. Big one there, boys. Celtic's Adam Ida and Liam Scales will be playing in the Champions League knockout stages after securing their position with a win over Young Boys to the delight of one James French. This week, they will play Aston Villa in the final round of the league phase. In some transfer news, last week, Brighton had a bid rejected for Derby's Aaron Cashin, big team of the centre-backs this week. Derby say the defender is categorically not for sale this window, and that is according to John Bursey of The Telegraph. Southampton are also looking into loaning out Gavin Bazunu, who's recently returned from his injury. We're hoping to record again just after the window closes, so we'll probably leave the rest of the transfer talk until then, where we can give a recap of the window, where we can see the big winners and losers from the transfer window.
Kayembe. Tikvic. Good turn here by Rocco Vata. Vata shot! My goodness! Special! Stunning! Rocco Vata, Rocket Vata! You do not save those!
Before we finish up, we'd be absolutely remiss not to be able to talk about Rocco Vata's form since we last recorded. This has been a big topic of discussion in the Ireland Radar podcast group chat. The last show we did a while back now, Ronan talked about him being a player to look out for most in 2025, and it seemed like he was absolutely correct with that. Since December 12th, he's contributed to Watford with 4 goals and 3 assists, including 2 incredible long-range strikes in his time. James, this must be a sort of bittersweet move for you. Obviously, being a Celtic supporter, you've obviously talked a lot on Twitter about what you think of Celtic's pathway options in the academy, and you haven't been too supportive of them. It looks like Vata will absolutely be included in Ireland's next squad. Surely you feel like he made the right move in the summer?
100%, yeah. And I was I'd say it was maybe like a small kind of group of people on Celtic Twitter kind of wanting him to be given an opportunity. Obviously kind of didn't work out for him, and if he can't be given opportunities when we're even when he'd won the league, he wasn't getting given opportunities when we were 4-0 up against Ross County when he was on the bench, he wasn't coming on, why would he stay? And I think if you look at where he's went to Watford in the Championship, I think I would have seen this season as more of a development season for him, getting used to regularly training first team football, regularly training with a senior first team. I know he obviously trained a bit with Celtic's first team, but in terms of playing, coming on for some minutes in the Championship, and I think it's completely shocked me in terms of how regular game time he's getting. Obviously, I kind of always knew he was a very talented player, and definitely deserved minutes. But I think that if you look at his output, the 4 goals, 3 assists, and 23 appearances for Watford, obviously substitute appearances included. It's a really good return for a guy that, again, is just 19 years of age, still a teenager. He's loads of growth to do, and I think it's just really exciting to see we actually have a young attacking winger that is dynamic, can take on a man. And obviously you've seen some of his strikes recently, he's really quality when he's on it, and I just hope he can continue his development at Watford, keep playing minutes in the Championship, and yeah, I think he'll be a shoo-in for that March squad, because as I was saying, we very few options winger wise that are kind of starting regularly. Obviously Mikey Johnson, but in terms of coming up, I think he's definitely one to watch, and he's kind of one for now, really, if he continues his form in the Championship.
Especially, I mean, if you're looking at Ireland and their winger options, obviously, with Johnson there and, a couple of the other players, I think with how he's playing now, there's probably a slot for him in the next squad, especially when you consider Albene's injury. I think it would be a bit of a mistake not to even just call him up and get a couple of games under his belt. We don't want another situation of, he who cannot be named happening. We don't want Scotland or Albania taking him. I'd much rather him, play for us.
Yeah, very good. I think we'll probably be all waking up in cold sweats at the thought of it just before the next international cap if his allegiances do stay to Ireland, which at the moment there's been no indication that they won't, we must add. But
I see on Twitter that Ryan Porteous, I think the Scottish centre half, he's all offered. Apparently he was trying to be using his ear about it, trying to get him to switch.
That is pretty much all we have time for today. But before we go, lads, I would throw over to any of you if you've got anything you'd like to add, anything exciting to note before we wrap up.
Kerry FC mid-table push incoming this year. You heard it here first. We actually we re-signed like all our best players. We actually signed players this year. We didn't really sign a whole lot last year. And what was it? Oh, I've also seen the kit. I've seen the kit before it got released. That announcement, I think, is probably coming Friday or Saturday. Very nice kit. So yeah, those are the three Kerry FC moments in this week's podcast. Ryan Kelleher, top scorer season incoming.
Probably an underrated one. Hard to follow it up, but probably an underrated story is why Adamide and Johnny Kenny now at Celtic, with Celtic's kind of star striker Kyogo for Ashley leaving. No replacement lined up yet. No talks for replacement lined up yet. Aston Villa next week. Like Adamide is going to start in that big kind of game, Champions League, up against some Premier League centre halves. Obviously has really had a great season, so just be interested to see how he kind of gets on in that at Villa Park, big Champions League game against Premier League opposition. And Johnny Kenny, then obviously we've no kind of second choice recognised striker now, so he'll probably be on at the next couple of benches, I'd hope. So I'm just kind of a side story for you if you're looking to follow Celtic and see how Adamide is getting on.
Very good, James. I'll thank both of you for joining us today. Thank you, Connell, for coming in as a squad player that you are becoming, and thank you, James. I will leave you to go back to sipping your sangria or whatever it is that you're doing there in Bilbao at the moment. But of course, before we go, every week we sign off by promoting an Irish artist, and this week we'll be signing you off with Jesus Wore Drag by Skinner. Thanks for joining us.
I'm your savior, lipstick flavored.